Ta-da! Welcome to video number 11 and the final in this series on the actual hi-fi itself. Today we're going to be talking all about this tremendous antenna mast and what we've got going on for the receiving of radio broadcast and the alike. We're going to go a bit more hands-on with this video. I'm going to take you for a wander manually through all the different components, everything from the tippy top to the bird strike post, all the way as we work our way down and into the internal cabling. Enjoy.
There we are, set in stone no less. M&J for Monica and Joseph. Of course the lady has to go first, you all know that. Happy wife, happy life, I keep telling you. But here we are with our antenna mast. Now I thought every good relationship deserves a solid foundation, so here we are with 3,500 kilos, 42 MPa concrete, steel reinforced, and further beneath that is another 1.2 meters of steel reinforcement that's spiked into the ground to the angle. So this is certainly not going anywhere. Needless to say, it's a fully climbable frame. I grew up with these types of antenna masts in a regional area that I lived in as a boy. One in every second home had one of these. Unfortunately, ours was not meant to be one of them, so I'm reliving my dream now. Needless to say, the ones I grew up with were often 2 and 3 times bigger than this one, mostly in the tripod sort of stand like this. Some were obviously guy wire ones. Obviously there was a lower antenna to pick up the local channels, and the big VHF was way up on the mast to get the capital city channels, or Adelaide channels as they were known. Needless to say, some people would decorate them up at Christmas and do all sorts of things. Now, as I said, they were 2-3 times bigger, as you've probably seen in these pictures here. They towered over the houses. Mine's not that big. A few key reasons. One, we're in a cyclone area. 2, every rung on that ladder that I keep going up seems to get higher and higher, and I don't like going up that high. Needless to say, though, it's a fully climbable tower. I can climb up and I can just make my way up to the masthead amp and make those necessary adjustments if needed. It's a beautiful day here today. Blue skies, bit of cloud. Can't really go wrong, can we? But needless to say, if we just swing around a bit more, so what we actually have an arrangement for here is the UHF antenna. Again, if I climb up on the roof of that shed and look over to where it's pointing, we're 5 kilometers direct line of sight to the transmitting tower. So I don't really need this tower, but you just try and stop me. Lower down we obviously have our FM antenna there. Now I do want to do a folded dipole array, and I think I still will do that. So that's going to be coming up a little bit later in some videos. You'll probably also notice on the top, and we'll see them in the footage I'm about to share with you now. Yes, that is a red obstruction beacon on the top. No, I do not need it, but you can't say it doesn't look good. There's even a galvanized bird spike on the top, just so we don't have the birds landing on top, because it is a solar driven one. It's actually connected magnetically, is the way that works. Also, I worked down to some floodlights. Again, I did want them to be up a little bit higher, but such is life, and here they are. Now they're independently wired, so when you flick the switch they don't both come we want on, but that's pretty much the story. We also do have the earth spike into the ground here, just in case of a lightning strike or something like that. So we have got a bit of a quick ground to get to there, and of course as we come up here, you can see that we've just got the 2 conduits accordingly running into this shed. So one for the actual communications coax, and then the other one for the electrical to the floodlights. So that's the tower as it stands, and expect some magic to be happening at Christmas time. That's the justification I'm working with my wife to why it should be here. So as you can see, the antenna mast was painted white. I don't need to tell you that she who must be obeyed did insist on that. I left the top part silver, but I think you'll agree it's probably worked out for the best. It blends in nicely, same colour as the shed. I put about 4 coats on there, should be just fine. Okay, so we make our way into the shed here, and at the moment we'll wander over to where the antennas all happen here. So at the end of the day, On the socket, as you can see coming out of here, is where I've terminated the actual input from the tower, and it obviously splits here with our power travelling over to the get the power, electrical power for the masthead amplifier. Our signal then just travels up and around. We come straight into a tap here. I used to work for Hills Industries, so I'm trying to keep everything Hills where I can. Needless to say though, we've got two splits here because we've got two outlets travelling away into the shed internally, and then we feed here the RJ11, which just travels its way in through here into the house. So that then travels underground and pops out into the ceiling of the house. Here we are in the ceiling, believe it or not, lights and a floorboard. Now that's rather unusual because we are in Australia and I can fully stand up inside this ceiling. We sort of did that. It's part of another project I'm working on, is to turn this into a usable space. But needless to say, here we are. So the big thick cable we've got coming in is our RG11 underground that's come in from the shed, which we just looked at before. So it comes in here, and then again, we're using Hills equipment here, splits accordingly. So each one of these is an individual TV outlet and or FM outlet. Accordingly, the FM ones have additional filters on the back of the wall plate there, but this is pretty much the thing. I like to keep them all logical and organized, as I've talked about structured cabling and that. Just sort of I think it's worth doing properly. Needless to say, also have just a nice clean wiring diagram that exactly explains where and what everything is on both campuses. Obviously the power to power this up, and that's pretty much the story. It's quite a spoiled little ceiling, attic or loft as other people call it in different countries. It's just a ceiling space for us in Australia. Ours is actually air conditioned. It's not on today, wouldn't be a bad thing, but it is the middle of winter. But of course, being Queensland, it's a balmy 22 degrees today, so Celsius, so enjoying every minute of that. Anyway, we'll carry on with the rest of the video. As you can see, plenty of other projects, including getting this MIDI archive museum idea underway, and we'll get all to that in good time. And here we are with the first piece of equipment that I ever purchased, which was this cassette player, purchased from a church fete when I was about 10 years old, I believe. Needless to say, it was the first thing I ever got. I remember buying this for $4 that had that magic connection for plugging in my parents' turntable, which is our little friend over here. I'm sure some of you will instantly recognize this plug here. And I actually had some RCAs to finally plug out to some other equipment. Needless to say though, irrespective about any of that, I was so overjoyed when I spotted the fact that it had those particular plugs for the record player, that I could finally do my own mixtapes. And would you believe it, after all these years, when I pushed the power button, I still get the VU meters going. In fact, it all still seems to be 100% working and all the rest of it. But needless to say, the radio station. So here we are, back in the shed, back to where we all started, all that time ago, so many 5 minutes ago. Needless to say, we are going to wrap it up, and the reason why I'm out here and I'm discussing about this magnificent piece, which I still have, when I was quite young, I had, like everyone else, was making my own mixtapes, and needless to say, I started my own radio station. Living in a regional town, we weren't spoilt for a lot of options, so I fabricated my own mixing console. The first time I could mix two simultaneous channels together using this mixer right here, as you can see in the picture. It's quite primitive, but it did give me the option to do it. I then stumbled upon another one for $5 at one of the big swap meets in the capital city that I had managed to pick up. I found a transformer from an old slot car racing track or something similar that I plugged in. I didn't know anything about voltages and amps at that point. Plugged it in, it lit up and it worked. The cassette drive was rubbish, so it looped and all the recording was done on this one here. But what I could do is I could manipulate multiple channels at this point. I truly liked it. We fabricated one of those Tandy electronics kits to make the radio station. We modified it to a big antenna. Again, my antenna mast has always been an important thing to me. And we were able to broadcast up to a range of just under 100 meters. So needless to say, the radio station, which I ended up calling 3XXX, I mean, who would have known what the X stood for as I grew up, but needless to say, I still thought it was pretty cool. Made up a logo, which is obviously the globe with the transmitting tower on top, with the lightning bolts around it that we've sort of seen other images and studios use before. But then again, there's a beer in Queensland called 4X, so anyway, transgressing. Of course, but 5YYY, my local radio station, I really had to have a soft spot for it when we used to, any more than my mum used to be twiddling the knob trying to find all those hits on her big AM radio with the big antenna. Any more than that was me, and of course it was the introduction of FM radio, and it was me finding those tracks. And once again, big special thanks to 5YYY in Whyalla that obviously fabricated the soundtrack to my youth. I still remember for the first time hearing tracks, which were of course indeed older, but Blue Oyster Cult, The Reaper, it was probably my first real foray into Led Zeppelin and some of the others now that we know and love, and it was absolutely earth-shatteringly good. Needless to say though, the FM revolution on it goes, and pirate radio, massive interest in pirate radio, particularly in the UK at the time. It's hard to imagine a world where we weren't as spoiled for choice as we are now with music, to think that it was actually being controlled, so to speak. But in a good way, of course. And of course, we've still got the underground being pushed in the UK with the pirate radio stations and the tower blocks and all the rest of it, pushing that underground garage, D&B, and just that electronic sort of underground sound and the rest of it. So still spend many times streaming in stations that I can access, things like Rinse FM, which is obviously now gone legal, of course, but still good stuff. Needless to say. So that now concludes pretty much all those stages in the hi-fi videos now. I'm sorry that they weren't all 5 minutes as I thought they were going to be. I don't even think we had one that even clicked to that. They were all closer to 10 minutes, needless to say. Don't stress, I'm not going anywhere. I've just got other big projects I need to be working on at the moment. So it might be weeks or months before, maybe even years before you see another video from me. But there are some I'd like to see. And of course, we'll see it when we slide on that stylus on the record player. We have obviously got, I'd love to be chatting more about my parents' record player. Obviously, they still have it and it's working now. And obviously the ability where obviously it was one of those multi-track ones where you could stack 3 or 4 45s on it and just let it drop and play, drop and play, drop and play. And it's very nostalgic, and I do miss that, actually. But chatting about records in general, obviously I want to get a video up soon about the test tracks I use for my sort of A and B comparisons and why I find them exceptionally useful. The MIDI Hi-Fi Museum that I sort of quickly showed you before, and I still would like to get all the old equipment that I can dig up and sort of string it together for a bit of a nostalgic playback and run through on that just to see how it all happened. But that's pretty much. Thanks so much for taking those precious 5 minutes. That's all I really need to say at the moment. Thank you so much. Party on, people. Rock and roll, rock on, and we'll see you in the next one. Toodles.
And once again, a big thank you to my wonderful wife and these 3 little treasures, Eclair, Bella and Daisy, who kept bumbling around under my feet, making me make more cuts than a butcher's knife. Bless them all. Thanks again. Toodles.